the earth shakes long before you see them. It is the summer of 1941, and the world is witnessing the most brutal invasion in human history. Operation Barbarossa. 3 million German soldiers, supported by over 3,000 tanks, are pouring across the Soviet border like a tidal wave of steel and fire. For the Red Army, the situation is not just bad. It is catastrophic. Entire Soviet divisions are being encircled and annihilated. The Russian soldiers, many of them young conscripts with barely a few weeks of training, are fighting with obsolete rifles against the most sophisticated war machine on the planet. But their biggest nightmare isn't the German infantrymen. It is the Panzer. The German tanks are tearing through Soviet lines with impunity. They are faster, better coordinated, and terrifyingly efficient. In the Kremlin and the forward command posts, panic is setting in. The Soviet Union is bleeding out. They are losing anti-tank guns faster than their factories can build them. They need a way to stop the German armor, and they need it immediately. Desperation breeds dark innovation. In a restricted military facility near Moscow, a solution has been waiting in the shadows. It is a program that officially began in the 1930s, approved by the Revolutionary Military Council. It wasn't built on steel or gunpowder, but on biology and behaviorism. Meet the new recruits. They don't carry rifles. They don't ask for pay. They are drafted from the streets of Moscow and the kennels of the countryside. Pastors, Dobermans, and Muchosen for their strength, agility, and hunger. For soldiers like Sergeant Lev, assigned to the specialized tank destroyer units, these dogs are not just equipment. They are partners. In the lonely, freezing nights of the barracks, a dog is often the only source of warmth and unconditional love a soldier has. Lev talks to his dog, Rex, a large Alsatian shepherd. He shares his meager rations with him. He trusts the dog with his life. But Lev knows something that Rex does not. The High Command has issued the order. The experimental units are to be deployed to the front lines immediately. The anti-tank dog program is no longer a theory. It is active service. The strategy is brutally simple in its conception. Utilize the dog's natural instincts to seek food to deliver a payload that no human soldier could get close enough to plant. It is a plan born from the absolute necessity of survival, where the lives of animals and the souls of their handlers are the currency paid to buy time against the Nazi advance. The training is over. The real test is about to begin. And for Lev and Rex, the war is about to become intimately, heartbreakingly personal. They are going to meet the Panzers. The training grounds outside Moscow are unforgiving. A landscape of frozen mud and gray skies where the wind cuts through the thickest coats. For Sergeant Lev and his dog, Rex, the days are long and repetitive, filled with a regimen that looks to an outsider like a strange game of fetch. But there is no playfulness here. The atmosphere is tense, driven by the urgency of the crumbling front lines. Lev watches Rex panting, his breath forming clouds in the cold air, and he feels a knot tightening in his stomach. He knows that every command he teaches, every successful drill they complete, brings his loyal companion one step closer to a violent end. The bond between them deepens with every hour spent together. A cruel paradox, where the handler's love is the very instrument used to guide the dog toward its death. To bridge the gap between animal instinct and military precision, the trainers use the oldest and most powerful motivator in existence: starvation. The dogs are not fed in their kennels. They are not given treats for sitting or staying. Instead, they are kept hungry, their bellies empty for days at a time, until their primal drive to eat overrides everything else. It is a calculated hardship, designed to sharpen their senses and focus their minds entirely on one singular goal. When the food finally appears, it is never in a bowl or from a hand. It is always placed in the most terrifying location imaginable for an animal, directly beneath the crushing metal tracks of a tank. Then comes the noise. The roar of a tank engine is deafening, a mechanical scream that instinctively sends most animals running for cover. But Rex and the other dogs must learn to associate this terrifying sound with salvation. The trainers start the engines of captured or obsolete tanks, letting them idle loudly while the starving dogs watch. When the dogs are released, they don't run away. They run toward the noise. They have been conditioned to believe that the loud rumble of a diesel engine is the dinner bell. Pavlov's theory is being applied with industrial ruthlessness. The terror of the machine is replaced by the anticipation of food, rewiring the dog's brain to view the metal monster not as a predator, but as a provider. The mechanics of the drill are repetitive and precise. The food is always placed under the tank's underbelly, between the treads, the only vulnerable spot on the armored vehicle where the hull is thinnest. Rex learns to sprint low to the ground, diving flat onto the ice to slide underneath the chassis. He learns that safety and sustenance are found in the dark, oily shadow of the tank. In these practice runs, he wears a weighted training pack filled with sand, simulating the heavy explosive charge he will eventually carry. He doesn't know what the leva on top of the pack is for. He doesn't know that on the day of the real mission, hitting that leva against the bottom of the tank will not release food. As the weeks pass, the difficulty escalates. The tanks are no longer stationary. They begin to move. The trainers fire blank rounds and toss flashbang grenades to simulate the chaos of active combat. The dogs must learn to ignore the explosions, the shouting, and the shifting ground. They must lock onto their target and ignore every distraction. Rex becomes a guided missile of muscle and fur. He is fast, fearless, and efficient. To the supervising officers, observing from the sidelines, the program looks like a resounding success. The dogs are hitting their marks. The anti-tank mine delivery system is operational. But amidst the success of the drills, a heavy silence hangs over the human handlers. Lev looks at the wooden lever protruding from Rex's training pack and imagines the real device that will take its place. To heavy canvas pouches, each containing 12 kilograms of teeth. The trigger is a simple wooden dowel designed to be pushed back when the dog crawls under the low clearance of the tank chassis. Once that dowel bends, the fuse ignites. There is no timer. There is no escape plan. The mission is designed to be a one-way trip. Lev scratches Rex behind the ears, offering a quiet apology that the dog cannot understand. Knowing that he has just successfully trained his best friend to commit suicide, the deployment orders come in the dead of night, shattering the fragile routine of the training camp. Sergeant Lev and the rest of the Special Canine Unit are packed into freezing cattle cars, huddled together for warmth as the train rattles violently toward the Western Front. The journey is a nightmare of claustrophobia and anxiety. Outside the wooden slats of the train cars, the Russian winter is setting in, turning the landscape into a white blur of snow and ice. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of wet fur, unwashed bodies, and palpable fear. The dogs, usually high energy and alert, seem to sense the shift in the atmosphere. They whine softly, pressing their bodies against their handlers, absorbing the tension that radiates from the men who are leading them into the abyss. When the train finally screeches to a halt, they are not greeted by a station, but by the ruins of a rail yard bombed into oblivion. The unit disembarks into a world that looks like the surface of another planet. The horizon is lit by the constant, flickering glow of distant artillery fire, and the ground vibrates with the impacts of heavy shells. This is no longer the controlled environment of the training school where the explosions were staged and the danger was simulated. This is the jagged edge of the war. The noise is overwhelming, a chaotic symphony of screams, mechanical grinding, and sudden, earth-shattering blasts that make even the most disciplined dogs pull nervously at their leashes. The unit is rushed to a forward operating base, a series of hastily dug trenches and bunkers carved into the frozen earth. The situation is dire. The commander briefs, the handlers with a grim expression, pointing to a map where the red lines of the Soviet defense are buckling under the weight of the blue German arrows. A massive column of panzer tanks has broken through the perimeter and is heading straight for their position. The infantry has no anti-tank guns left. They have been destroyed or abandoned in the retreat. The only thing standing between the German armor and the open road to the capital is this experimental unit. The soldiers look at their dogs, then at the approaching enemy line, realizing the impossible weight of the responsibility resting on their shoulders. That, evening the preparation takes on a somber, ritualistic quality. Lev sits in the corner of a dugout, illuminated by a flickering kerosene lamp, and begins the final modification of Rex's equipment. He removes the weighted bags of sand that the dog has carried for months. In their place, He carefully slides the live explosives into the canvas pouch. The blocks of TNT are cold and heavy, smelling faintly of chemicals. He attaches the wooden detonator lever, checking the mechanism with trembling hands. It is a simple, crude device, but it is deadly effective. Once the safety pin is pulled, a mere tilt of the lever will complete the circuit. Lev realizes that he is essentially strapping a bomb to his best friend, transforming a living, breathing creature into a weapon of mass destruction. The night is long and sleepless. The soldiers lie in the trenches, hugging their dogs, trying to keep them warm against the biting frost. There is a profound silence between the men, a shared understanding of the horror that awaits them at dawn. They feed the dogs their last meager ration, a small act of kindness that feels like a betrayal. The dogs eat hungrily, unaware that this might be their last meal, unaware that the hunger they will feel tomorrow is the trigger for their demise. Lev whispers to Rex, burying his face in the dog's thick fur, trying to memorize the smell and the warmth of the animal. He prays that the training holds, that the dog will be quick, that it won't suffer. Dawn breaks not with the sun, but with the roar of engines. It starts as a low hum and grows into a terrifying growl that rattles the teeth in Lef's skull. Through the morning mist, the shapes materialize. Dark, angular monsters of steel emerging from the tree line. The German Panzers, they are bigger and louder than the tanks used in training. The smell of their exhaust drifts across the snowy field of Char. Acrid scent of high-octane gasoline that is distinctly different from the heavy diesel fumes of the Soviet tractors the dogs were trained on. Lev grips the leash, his knuckles white. The time for practice is over. He pulls the safety pin from the pack on Rex's back. The experiment is about to face reality. The command tears through the icy air, shouting over the din of the approaching treads. Lev hesitates for a fraction of a second, his hand trembling on the metal clip of the leash, looking into Rex's eager eyes one last time. Then, he releases the clasp. He slaps the dog's flank hard, screaming the command to go. To find the food, to find the target, Rex launches himself forward, a streak of brown and black fur sprinting across the gnomons. Around him, other handlers are doing the same, and suddenly, a pack of 24 dogs is racing across the snow-covered field, ears pinned back, heading straight into the teeth of the German blitz. From the Soviet trenches, the soldiers watch with bated breath, hoping that this desperate gamble will turn the tide of the battle. But the battlefield is not a training ground. In the controlled environment of the school, the tanks were often stationary or moving slowly, and the only sound was the engine. Here, the world is exploding. Mortar shells are tearing up the earth, sending geysers of frozen dirt and shrapnel into the air. The German machine gunners mounted on the Panzers spot the movement and open fire, tracers zipping just inches above the snow. The noise is not the rhythmic hum of an engine that signals dinner. It is a cacophony of violence that screams danger. The conditioning, drilled into the animals through months of starvation, begins to fracture under the overwhelming sensory overload of actual combat. Rex weaves through the craters, his body low to the ground, driven by the gnawing hunger in his belly. He reaches the lead German Panzer, a massive Mark III tank, spewing gray exhaust. He circles it, looking for the opening, looking for the familiar smell of diesel fuel and the warmth of the engine block. But something is wrong. The scent hitting his nose is sharp and chemical, the distinct odor of high-octane gasoline used by the German engines. It does not smell like the Soviet diesel tractors he was trained on. It does not smell like food. Confused, Rex hesitates, barking at the metal monster, unsure of where his reward is hiding. The German crew inside the tank is initially baffled by the sight of a dog barking at their hull in the middle of a firefight. But then, the commander spots the bulky canvas pack strapped to the animal S-back and the wooden lever sticking up like a dorsal fin. The realization hits with terrifying clarity. He screams into his radio, warning the rest of the column. The machine guns traverse. Downward, the coaxials and the hull gunners open up with renewed intensity, targeting the dogs. Bullets kick up snow around Rex, forcing him to scramble away from the tank, his tail tucked between his legs. The safe haven he was promised has become a source of pain and noise. Panic begins to set in among the pack. Lev watches in horror through his binoculars as the plan unravels. He sees Rex turn away from the German line. He sees the other dogs doing the same. They are not retreating. They are returning to base. They are running back toward the Soviet trenches, seeking the comfort of their handlers, wagging their tails as they sprint for home. But they are still carrying the live explosives on their backs. The safety pins are pulled. The detonators are active as the pack races back toward the dugouts, where hundreds of Soviet soldiers are huddled. Lev realizes with a sickening jolt that the weapon they built to save them is coming back to destroy them. The panic that erupts in the Soviet trenches is unlike anything the soldiers have experienced before. It is not the disciplined chaos of combat, but a frantic, primal terror. The men see the dogs sprinting back toward them, their tongues lolling out, eyes wide with the desperate need for comfort. To the dogs, they are returning to the pack, to the safety of the Alpha. But to the soldiers, these are no longer their loyal companions. They are sprinting, biological minds. The officers scream orders that freeze the blood in the veins of every handler present. They are commanding the men to open fire on their own positions, to shoot the very animals they have spent months feeding, training, and sleeping beside. The line between friend and enemy has vanished, erased by a tragic error in conditioning. Lev stands paralyzed on the firing step, his rifle shaking in his hands. He sees Rex bounding over the snow, closing the distance with incredible speed. The dog locks eyes with him, and Lev can see the confusion and the relief in the animal's expression. Rex thinks the mission is over. He thinks he has done a good job by escaping the scary metal monsters and returning to his master. He is expecting praise. He is expecting safety. He has no concept of the death strapped to his back, or the precarious wooden leva that is jostling dangerously with every leap. Lev hears the crack of rifles around him as other soldiers, driven by the instinct to survive, begin to shoot the returning dogs. The tragedy unfolds in slow motion. A Doberman, belonging to a soldier just a few yards down the line, reaches the parapet of the trench. The dog tries to squeeze into the dugout for cover, looking for its handler. As it scrambles over the sandbags, the wooden lever on its back catches on a frozen root or the edge of a crate. The detonation is instantaneous and deafening. A cloud of dirt, snow, and red mist erupts into the air, obliterating the section of the trench and killing 3 Soviet soldiers instantly. The shockwave knocks Lev backward, ringing in his ears, but his eyes never leave Rex. The explosion has terrified the remaining dogs even more, sending them scattering frantically into the very heart of the Soviet defensive line. The chaos is absolute. The German tanks in the distance have stopped firing, the crews likely watching in bewilderment as the Soviet line consumes itself. Inside the Russian position, it is a slaughter. Handlers are weeping openly as they pull their triggers, cutting down the dogs that are trying to nuzzle their hands. It is a betrayal of the highest order, a breaking of the ancient covenant between man and beast. Lev raises his Mosin-Nagant rifle, the wooden stock pressing against his cheek. Rex is only 30 yards away now, barking a greeting, running straight for him. The crosshairs of the scope settle on the dog's chest, just below the explosive pack. Lev's finger tightens on the trigger, but he cannot do it. He cannot kill the creature that kept him warm during the brutal winter nights, the only living thing that looks at him with total, unquestioning love. He lowers the rifle, screaming at Rex to stay back, waving his arms frantically, but the command is lost in the noise of the battle. Rex interprets the gesture as a signal to come closer. He accelerates, tail wagging, eager to be Lev realizes with a sinking heart that his hesitation might doom them all. He scrambles out of the trench, exposing himself to enemy fire, trying to intercept the dog before it reaches the packed bunker where the ammunition is stored. He tackles Rex in the snow, grabbing the harness, his hands frantically searching for the safety pin he pulled only minutes ago. The dog licks his face, whimpering, happy to be held. Lev is sobbing, tears freezing on his cheeks. As he wrestles with the canvas straps, he manages to jam the pin back into the mechanism just as a mortar shell lands nearby, spraying them with dirt. They lie there together in the snow, man and dog, shivering in the aftermath of the friendly fire. The immediate danger of the explosion is past, but as Lev looks around the smoking ruins of his unit's position, seeing the bodies of dogs and men scattered together, he knows that something inside him has died forever. The experiment has failed, and the cost is unbearable. The aftermath of the debacle is a grim tableau of silence and smoke. In the command bunker, the air is thick with the smell of cheap tobacco and fear. The surviving handlers, Lev included, stand at attention, their faces smeared with soot and the dried blood of their comrades. They face a tribunal of NKVD officers who are looking for someone to blame for the catastrophe. In the logic of the Soviet political machine, equipment does not fail. Men do. Accusations of sabotage and cowardice are thrown around the room like grenades. Lev holds his breath, waiting for the order that will send him to a penal battalion or a firing squad. But the evidence outside is undeniable. It wasn't cowardice. It was a fundamental flaw in the design of the experiment itself. The dogs did exactly what they were trained to do. The humans were the ones who misunderstood the variables of the battlefield. The technical inquiry that follows reveals the tragic error in hindsight. The Soviet biologists realized that the dogs, trained on Soviet tanks powered by diesel engines, were repelled by the strong smell of gasoline from the German Panzers. Furthermore, the dogs were conditioned to find food under stationary vehicles, not noisy, moving monsters that were firing machine guns. When faced with the sensory overload of the German offensive, the dogs naturally sought the familiar. The smell of diesel fuel and the presence of their handlers. The report is filed, stamped, top secret, and buried in the archives. The program is not cancelled. Desperate times call for desperate measures, but the tactics are quietly reviewed. Lev and Rex are spared execution, but they are not released from their duty. Across the lines, the Germans are quick to capitalize on the Soviet failure. The Wehrmacht propaganda machine goes into overdrive. They broadcast stories of the barbaric Bolsheviks sending sacrificial hounds to do their fighting. The German soldiers coin a new term for the threat, Hund or dog mines. While they mock the strategy publicly, privately, the German tankers are terrified. The idea of a fast, low-profile attacker that can run under their visual range and blow them up is a psychological nightmare. Orders are issued from the highest levels of the German High Command. All dogs in the combat zone are to be considered active combatants. This order changes the nature of the war for every canine in the East Front. It creates a scorched earth policy for animals. German snipers and machine gunners begin to shoot any dog on sight, regardless of whether it is carrying a pack or not. Farm dogs, strays, and pets in occupied villages are slaughtered indiscriminately to prevent them from being used by the Soviets. The war has expanded its definition of the enemy. Lev hears the stories from scouts returning from behind enemy lines fields littered with the bodies of dogs, a preemptive strike against a weapon that barely works. Lev and Rex are redeployed to a reserve line, away from the immediate heat of the tank battles, but the psychological toll is mounting. Lev finds himself looking at Rex differently. The dog is no longer just a companion. He is a walking target that endangers everyone around him. The other soldiers in the unit, who used to pet Rex and share their food with him, now keep their distance. They eyed the empty harness hanging in Lev's dugout with suspicion. They know that if the order comes again, that dog becomes a bone. The bond of trust in the unit has been fractured by the fear of friendly fire. Despite the tragedy, the war grinds on, and the demand for anti-tank solutions remains critical. The Soviet High Command decides to give the program another chance, this time with stricter controls and different engagement rules. Lev receives new orders. They are being moved south toward a city on the Volga River that is about to become the center of the world's attention. The train ride is somber. Lev strokes Rex's head, feeling the coarse fur under his fingers, knowing they are heading into the cauldron of He swears to himself that he will find a way to save his dog, even if he has to disobey the orders that define his existence as a soldier. Stalingrad is not a city anymore. It is a graveyard of jagged concrete and twisted steel, burning on the banks of the Volga. When Lev and his unit disembark, the air is so thick with dust and pulverized brick that it coats the back of their throats with a gritty paste. This is the Rat War, a savage close-quarters conflict fought in basements, sewers, and the hollowed-out shells of apartment blocks. Unlike the open snowy steppes where the dogs could run freely, This is a claustrophobic nightmare of sharp debris and hidden sight lines. The terrain is treacherous for paws. Rex navigates the rubble piles carefully, his nails clicking against the stone, his ears twitching at the constant echo of sniper fire bouncing off the ruined walls. The nature of the threat has changed in this concrete jungle. The German tanks are no longer sweeping across open fields in grand formations. Here, the Panzers are sluggish beasts, creeping cautiously through the debris-clogged streets, terrified of ambushes from the windows above. This makes them vulnerable, but also incredibly dangerous. A single tank parked at a strategic intersection can hold off an entire Soviet battalion for days. The desperation of the Red Army defenders is palpable. Supplies are low, men are dying by the thousands every day, and the pressure to break the German blockade on the factories is immense. The commanders look at the dogs not with pity, but as a necessary expenditure to clear the roads. For Lev, the city offers a strange, grim paradox. The chaos of the ruins makes it easier to hide Rex from the prying eyes of the commissars who want to send him to his death. Lev volunteers for scouting missions, using Rex's keen hearing to detect enemy patrols long before a human could. In the freezing cellars where they sleep, the dog serves as a heater and a sentry. The bond between them transcends the military hierarchy. They are two survivors clinging to each other in hell. Lebbegan still misplaced the explosive harness, leaving it buried under piles of rubble, claiming the equipment was damaged, doing anything to delay the inevitable order to turn Rex into a martyr. However, the German fear of the Hundeminen has followed them here. The enemy soldiers are paranoid. If a dog is spotted crossing a street, every weapon in the vicinity opens fire. The Germans have learned that a dog in Stalingrad is rarely just a dog. It is often a delivery system for high explosives or a courier carrying vital intelligence. This paranoia makes even a simple bathroom break a life-or-death gamble for Rex. Lev has to construct makeshift armor for the dog out of scavenged leather and metal scraps, trying to offer him some protection against the shrapnel that constantly rains down from the artillery duels overhead. The reprieve ends on a Tuesday morning under a sky choked with black smoke. A German Panzer IV has maneuvered into a fortified position near the tractor factory, its cannon devastating the Soviet supply lines. Infantry attacks have failed. Molotov cocktails can't get close enough. The battalion commander turns to the special unit. He doesn't want excuses about damaged harnesses or terrain difficulties. He points to the tank, then points to Rex. The order is absolute. Destroy the obstacle or face a court-martial for treason. Lev feels the blood drain from his face. There is no open field to run across this time. Only a narrow, debris-filled street that acts as a perfect shooting gallery. Lev retrieves the explosive pack from its hiding place, his hands shaking so violently he can barely buckle the straps. He looks at the tank, a gray fortress sitting 200 yards away, its machine guns scanning the street. He looks at Rex, who is wagging his tail, sensing the energy of a mission but oblivious to the suicide run he is about to undertake. Lev kneels in the dust, pulling the dog's forehead against his own, whispering a frantic, tearful prayer. He knows the German gunners are watching. He knows the tank smells of gasoline. But he has no choice. He pulls the safety pin, the metallic click sounding like a gunshot in the quiet anticipation of the trench. The final countdown has begun. Lev releases the collar, his hand lingering for a fraction of a second on the chorus fur before he pushes the dog forward into the kill zone. Rex sprints into the street, a blur of motion against the gray, pulverized landscape of For a few heartbeats, the scene is surreal. The battlefield falls silent as both sides process the sight of a lone dog charging through the ruins. But the silence is shattered by the mechanical clatter of the Panzer's coaxial machine gun. The German gunner has spotted the threat. Bullets chew up the pavement around Rex, sending shards of concrete flying like shrapnel. The dog zigs and zags instinctively, using the piles of debris as cover, his training kicking in despite the chaos. He is a predator, closing in on prey, unaware that he is the ammunition. The distance to the tank is only 200 yards, but in the urban warfare of 1942, that is a marathon. Rex scrambles over a collapsed brick wall, his paws slipping on the loose rubble. The canvas pack on his back, heavy with 12 kilograms of TNT, swings dangerously with every movement. The wooden lever, the trigger that stands between life and oblivion, scrapes against a piece of rebar sticking out of the ground. Lev watches through his binoculars, his breath caught in his throat, terrified that the dog will detonate prematurely. Every stumble, every jump, is a potential catastrophe. The physics of the bomb are indifferent to the loyalty of the animal carrying it. As Rex closes the distance to within 50 yards, the sensory confusion strikes again. The wind shifts, carrying the thick, acrid smoke of the battle and the sharp chemical sting of the German gasoline. The familiar comforting scent of diesel that Rex associates with food is absent. Instead, he is met with a wall of noise and the terrifying heat radiating from the tank-S muzzle. Confused and frightened by the intensity of the machine gun fire, Rex's conditioning breaks. He does not dive under the tank. Instead, he veers sharply to the left, diving behind the rusted hulk of a destroyed tram car to seek shelter from the bullets. The attack has stalled. Rex is now pinned down in the middle of no man's land, shivering behind the tram, the live explosive still strapped to his back. The German tank crew, realizing the dog is hiding just a few meters away, begins to traverse their turret, trying to get a firing angle on his position. In the Soviet trench, the battalion commander screams in fury. The weapon has failed to deliver itself. He turns to Lev, his face twisted with the pragmatic cruelty of war. He draws his sidearm and points toward the tram car. He orders Lev to shoot the dog. If the bullet hits the pack, the explosion might still be close enough to disable the tank's tracks. Lev stares at the officer, the order ringing in his ears like a physical blow. He is being told to execute his partner, to detonate his best friend from a distance. The commander shouts again, threatening to shoot Lev for insubordination if he doesn't take the shot immediately. Lev raises his rifle, the heavy wood stock feeling like lead in his hands. He looks through the scope. He can see Rex's tail poking out from behind the tram rail. The dog is waiting for a command, waiting for Lev to come and get him. The crosshairs hover over the canvas pack. The logic of the war dictates that the dog is already dead. He is just a biological asset that needs to be liquidated for a tactical advantage. But Lev lowers the barrel by a fraction of an inch. Che non do Italiano. He cannot murder the soul that trusts him. Instead of aiming at the explosive bag, Lev shifts his aim to the brickwork of the building directly above the German tank. He squeezes the trigger. The shot rings out, not hitting the dog, but smashing into a precarious ledge of masonry hanging over the Panzer. The distraction is momentary, but it is enough. The falling bricks startle the tank crew, causing them to button up their hatches. In that split second of confusion, Lev makes a decision that will seal his fate. He doesn't shoot the dog. He whistles a sharp, piercing sound that cuts through the noise of the battle signaling Rex to retreat. He is calling the bomb back home. The whistle pierces the cacophony of the firefight, a sharp, commanding sound that cuts through the roar of the German tank engine. Rex, confused by the bullets kicking up dust around him and the alien smell of the gasoline-fueled Panzer, latches onto the familiar signal. He spins around on his haunches, his tail tucking between his legs, and begins to sprint back toward the Soviet lines. He ignores the tank, ignores the mission, and focuses entirely on the one human voice he trusts. But his return is not greeted with relief. In the trenches, the battalion commander screams an order that seals the fate of both man and beast. He declares the dog a threat to the unit and orders the infantry to open fire on the returning animal. The Soviet line erupts in a hail of gunfire. Most Sinigan rifles and PPSH submachine guns turn their barrels toward the lone dog racing across the debris. To the soldiers, Rex is no longer a comrade. He is a biological delivery system for a bomb that could collapse their entire bunker if he dives into it. Rex yelps as a bullet grazes his flank, stumbling but scrambling back up, his eyes locked on Lev's position. Erun's heart are driven by pain and fear, seeking the safety of his master's arms. Lev watches the tracer zipping toward his dog, and something inside him snaps. The conditioning of the soldier, the obedience to hierarchy and the fear of the commissar, replaced by a primal, protective rage. Lev vaults over the parapet of the trench, abandoning his cover and his duty. He sprints into the kill zone, screaming at the top of his lungs. waving his arms to distract the shooters. Behind him, the commander shouts for him to halt, branding him a traitor and a deserter. But Lev doesn't look back. He is running directly into the crossfire between the Nazi tank and the Soviet infantry. He is the only thing standing between the dog and a firing squad of his own countrymen. He intercepts Rex halfway across the ruined street, tackling the animal into the bottom of a deep shell crater just as a burst of machine gun fire chews up the lip of the hole. Inside the crater, the world narrows down to mud, blood, and heavy breathing. Lev doesn't waste a second. He pins Rex to the ground, pulling a trench knife from his belt. His hands are slippery with sweat and blood, but he works with frantic precision. He slashes at the canvas straps of the explosive harness, sawing through the tough material. Rex is whining, trying to lick Lev's face. Sensing the panic, Lev screams at the dog to stay still, finally cutting the last buckle. He rips the deadly pack, laden with 12 kilograms of TNT, off the dog's back and flings it to the far side of the crater, as far away from them as possible. The German tank, having adjusted its aim, toward the commotion in the crater, fires a high explosive shell. The round impacts the edge of their shelter, detonating just feet away. The shockwave is massive. It triggers the discarded explosive pack, causing a sympathetic detonation that rips the earth apart. A massive plume of black smoke, dirt, and concrete dust whizzes into the air, completely obscuring the street to the Soviet soldiers watching from the trench. It looks like a direct hit. The dog, the man, and the bomb have vanished in a violent eruption. The commander lowers his binoculars, marking them as casualties of their own incompetence, and turns his attention back to holding the line. But deep in the smoke, amidst the ringing silence of the aftermath, there is movement. Covered in a thick layer of gray dust, coughing and bruised, Lev drags himself out of the debris of a collapsed cellar connected to the crater. He pulls on the leash, and Rex emerges behind him, shaken and bleeding from the graze, but alive. The explosion provided the perfect cover. In the eyes of the Red Army and the Wehrmacht, they are dead. Lev looks at the ruins of the city stretching out before them, a labyrinth of broken buildings where they can disappear. He realizes that they can never go back. They are no longer soldiers. They are ghosts, fugitives in a dying city, with only each other to rely on for survival. For weeks, Lev and Rex exist as phantoms in the ruins of Stalingrad. Living in the cellars beneath the skeleton of the city, they survive on scavenged rations taken from the dead and melted snow, moving only at night to avoid the patrols of both armies. In the chaos of the encirclement, where hundreds of thousands of men are fighting and dying, two lost souls are easily overlooked. The bond between them shifts from that of a master and a weapon to something primal and equal. They keep each other warm. They watch each other's backs. And slowly, the trauma of the suicide mission begins to fade, replaced by the simple, enduring instinct to survive. Lev removes the last remnants of the military harness from Rex, rubbing away the calluses it left on the dog's skin, symbolically freeing him from his designation as a walking bomb. The tide of the war eventually turns. The German 6th Army, starving and frozen, finally capit. The silence that falls over Stalingrad after months of deafening artillery is unnerving. In the disorganized aftermath of the victory, amidst the merging of shattered battalions and the reassignment of survivors, Lev manages to reintegrate himself into the Red Army. He joins a sapper unit, engineers tasked with clearing the millions of mines left behind by the enemy. He claims to be a survivor of a destroyed infantry platoon, and Rex is introduced not as an anti-tank dog, but as a mine detection dog. It is a lie that saves their lives, allowing them to serve without the looming shadow of the suicide squad. The irony of their new role is profound. The very animal that was trained to carry explosives is now retrained to find them. Lev uses positive reinforcement, patience, and love, the opposite of the starvation tactics used in the anti-tank schools. Rex, with his keen nose and high intelligence, he learns to sniff out the metallic scent of German teller mines buried in the mud and the tripwires hidden in the grass. Instead of running toward death, he is now the guardian of life, walking 20 paces ahead of the advancing Soviet columns, signaling danger with a sit or a bark. The dog that was meant to die to stop one tank now saves the lives of hundreds of soldiers by clearing the path forward. As the Red Army pushes westward, driving the Nazis back to Berlin. The legacy of the anti-tank dog program quietly fades into history, viewed largely as a tragic failure. The military realizes that while you can condition a reflex, you cannot override the confusion of a battlefield. However, the mine detection dog units become legendary. By the end of the war, Soviet dogs are credited with detecting over 4 million miles. Rex and Lev walked the long road from the Volga to the Spree. Aging together, their bodies scarred by the cold and the shrapnel, but their spirits unbroken. They are no longer a desperate experiment. They are heroes of the engineering corps. The final chapter of their war is written not in blood, but in glory. On June 24, 1945, a massive victory parade is held in Red Square in Moscow. Rain pours down, washing away the dust of 4 years of conflict. Among the thousands of troops marching past the Kremlin, there is a special column of mine detection dogs and their handlers. History records that the dogs marched on that day. And legend says that the famous mine dog Julbers, who was wounded, was carried on Joseph Stalin's own tunic. While Lev and Rex are just faces in that sea of victors, they represent the survival of something pure amidst the industrial slaughter. Lev stands in the rain, looking down at Rex, whose muzzle is now gray with age. The dog looks up, his tail wagging slowly, waiting for a command that will never again be a death sentence. The dark experiment of 1941, the starving dogs, and the terror of the tracks are memories now. Buried under the weight of peace, they survived the incompetence of their commanders and the cruelty of their enemy. Lev rests a hand on the dog's head, feeling the steady beat of a heart that was once destined to stop under a Panzer. The war is over. The Hundeminen are gone. All that remains is the man and his dog, standing together in the quiet rain, alive